You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers with Saya, Anissa, and Borma. Hello, I'm Saya.
And I'm Parma, not Anissa.
Listeners won't know, but just before we hit record, we were like, what order shall we do the intro in? And Borma goes, oh, let's start with, I'm Anissa. And we were like, Anissa's not here though. This is like Yoongi Marry Me and Yoongi's not here. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop slipping BTS references into everything.
That would be so confusing for people who don't follow BTS though. Like, now I feel like you should explain to them what Yoongi Marry Me is all about.
Oh no, we're going to get in trouble. No, just go and Google it. You'll find out. It's very funny.
Okay.
Look it up on YouTube.
It is really funny.
And if you don't care, you can ignore it for the rest of your life. Even better. Okay, so what we're actually here for today is...
A wild yak.
On? Our Blooming Youth. Why do we sound like ads?
I don't know, but Park Hyung-sik is back, y'all.
Yay, Hyung-sik. You know what's so nice is having like 4 out of 5 of the Uga squad on screen like right now.
Aww.
Because Ginny's Kitchen just started airing and we're not talking about that today and neither of us have watched it yet, but we'll probably come back for it.
3 members of the squad are in it. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. So this is about a drama called Our Blooming Youth, which is airing on TVN, starring Park Hyung-sik as the lead and John Soni as the female lead. So I guess Park Hyung-sik is the male lead. I didn't think we need to specify, but since...
Okay, so Park Hyung-sik is definitely the lead. And for our female lead, we have... Who do we have? Jung Soni. You may remember her as the main lead of Kim Yoon-suk's... it was Kim Yoon-suk's, right?
Kim Yoon-suk, yeah. Scripting Your Destiny. Oh, wasn't she undercover in that drama? She was pretending it wasn't hers, but...
I mean, she produced it. So Kim Yoon-suk is the writer of like many, many amazing dramas, but the latest of which was The King, Eternal Monarch. But that was the latest, right? Oh, wait, no. The latest of it is The Glory, which is still airing, kind of, because the second half is coming out in March.
But just to clarify so that we don't end up sending people off with a mistake, Scripting Your Destiny's screenwriter is a person called Eun Sonu, but it was kind of the brainchild of Kim Yoon-suk, which is why we've mentioned her in connection with it. So
she has like producer billing. She doesn't exactly have like the... Yeah. So she was pretty clear on this. Like, it wasn't her writing, but she was just sort of in the background because she's been wanting to do things differently for a while. I feel like we are recording a totally different podcast.
We are. Let's come back.
So you last saw this leading lady in that sort of like web series. And I don't even think that was like a full-blown drama. And so, but John Soni she is really good. She's
amazing. So just to give you a quick overview of what the drama is about, it is about Park Hyung-sik plays a crown prince, which, if you don't know yet, is one of my favorite types of characters. And also, if you want to know why, go sign up on Patreon where I have posted like a 17-minute defense of crown princes. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. So he plays a crown prince, and John Soni plays a character called Min Jae, who is the daughter of a minister, and she is a bit of see, I don't want to use any of the words that are coming to mind. I don't want to say she's a bit of a rebel. I don't want to say she's a bit of a tomboy. But understand that in not wanting to use those words, what I'm trying to say, she's someone who doesn't like the way the system is stacked for herself and for women, and she just imagines a different life for herself, and she goes about living according to what she believes in, which can involve her running around wearing men's clothes, solving crimes, and helping people in unconventional ways. So I guess we would say she's untraditional, and doesn't enjoy the roles that society wants for her in the semi-fictional, semi-historical time that she exists in. So is this I don't think it's quite a fusion saga. It's a fantasy saga, I guess. Because it's not moored to a particular era, but it is still Joseon. But there's not like a
I mean,
particular.
I would probably call it fusion saga. It has like a lot of the elements, like the gender bender side of things, like the modern, like the heroine with like the modern outlook, the hero who's like very supportive of the heroine. Yeah.
Is he?
I mean, you know what I mean. Like, yeah, he's not yet, but you know, he's going to
Yeah.
get there.
Oh wait, I haven't even got to the main premise yet. Let me just say that bit,
Yeah.
and then we'll go on to what the story is. So she finds herself on the run, accused of murdering her entire family. And
Just by the way, just like the setup of it was so cool. We'll get there. Sorry.
Yeah. And the crown prince is recovering from an injury or has a disability caused by an injury, and is under, or thinks he is under, the power of a curse. And so that's a whole sort of mystery. I said that very unclearly.
I mean, because the drama sets it up
The
very
drama,
unclearly.
yeah,
Like
it's
you're
pretty
not sure if
ambiguous.
he's having like a psychosomatic reaction to being
Right.
shot at one point, or if it's actually like, you know, magic realism at play and like
Right.
there's a curse like
Yeah.
hovering over him. It's like you when you see it from the Park Hyung-sik's perspective, like the prince's perspective, it feels like a curse, but also it's like it's like a miasma that's like constantly around him, so
Right.
it feels like he's immersed in a curse.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like when looking from the outside, it also just looks like an injury, maybe a psychosomatic one.
Yeah,
So
or like PTSD of some kind, and
yeah,
there's all sorts of things. And because he wasn't born the crown prince, he was sort of thrust into that position after his older brother was murdered, and he's also suspected of being responsible for killing his brother. So you have these two sort of unfairly or fairly, we don't know, that's also part of the story. These two characters who are accused or thought to be responsible, like openly or covertly, for the deaths of their family/family members. I made it sound so convoluted. It's actually more clear than that. So you can see, like, immediately there's a reason for them to sympathize with each other. But do they? Oh, we will not answer that now. So how much of it have you watched so far?
I have watched. I'm on the third episode right now. So around the second week, I sort of like started stalling a bit. Not because anything to do with the drama necessarily. There were like a couple other things that I wanted to catch up to. But again, like first impressions, just like the first week. How did you feel like when you were watching the first two episodes?
I loved it. And then I was sad that all of our friends in our group chat did not.
Okay, so initially when I saw Park Hyung-sik's introduction to it, I was not sure what they were trying to do with it. So I had gone into this like without reading up on like the synopsis or anything like that. So it was just like a cold opening to me. While it was focused on the cursed prince narrative, I was just waiting for something to happen. And then the story shifts to, so the cursed prince has a friend who's like a minister's son, right?
Mhm.
And this friend is sort of betrothed to this girl who's like the daughter of like
This is Johnson's character. He's betrothed to Johnson's character, Jay.
right. So Johnson's character is like the daughter of this this teacher who used to teach the prince at one point, like both the boys. Yeah. So and also like he's an unconventional man who was like well respected, and of course there is like courtly factions at play. So there is one side that wants the prince to thrive and the other side that just wants the prince to like just go away already and like not thrive.
AKA
so
die.
obviously yeah. So you have this setup where the prince is like constantly being tested, like people are waiting for him to fail, and because everybody knows that he has an issue with his right arm, it doesn't quite work all the time, and there are rumors in the palace that like it doesn't work at
no
all.
one in public has seen him use his right hand or arm for like a year, so they don't know whether he's truly disabled or whether he's got like he's keeping it something secret.
Correct. And of course, as you would know if you've watched any Sagyok at all, you can't have a prince with like a scratch on his body, let alone like a disabled arm.
They don't want to allow a man with a disability to become king because that would go against everything that they believe in about like the superiority of the king. The necessary superiority of the king. Like the king must be superior. The royal bloodline must be superior to prove that they have the right to rule over you worthless peons.
Right. So that's what our prince is dealing with. And so his friend is about to get married, and like betrothal gifts have been sent to the bride's house, which is like another village and stuff like that. And then almost on the eve of the wedding, pretty much, news suddenly comes that the entire family of the fiance is dead, and that the one accused of murder is the daughter of the family, which is Johnsony. And Prince and his friend have both met Johnsony's character when they were kids. So again, like at this point, the story started getting interesting to me because of various aspects. Like the one thing being like Johnsony is already betrothed to the
the king's
friend
best
and
friend.
not like
Sorry, the prince's best
yeah.
friend. Yeah.
Correct. And both of them had like a good impression of her as a kid. Like rambunctious child, sort of wearing like boys' clothes and like blackmailing them into giving like a river toll.
Pranking them.
Because yeah, pranking them. But overall, they had like a good impression of her as a person. So the moment they hear this, they can't quite believe it.
Although I think let's not understate. So the second male lead, I guess, is played by Yoon Jong Suk, and the name of the character is Han Song-on, and like in the subs, they like the title they give him is the sergeant. He's basically the prince's right hand man, and he has a very cute adoration of Jae from his memories of childhood. It's like they didn't have a good experience, but he remembers it so fondly, and he is already like most of the way in love with her. So I don't want to understate how much feeling already exists between these characters, even if they haven't requited them, like they haven't met. She's excited about marrying him. He's excited about marrying her. The prince is excited that, his best friend is
These two are
getting
getting
married.
married.
Yeah. And then everything goes to pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing that I really liked was that everybody was really happy. And if things had all gone to plan, then the prince would have been really happy attending the wedding of his friend and like this wild girl they met as kids. And they probably would have been like a perfectly happy, conventional, noble couple.
And another thing is that to give you an idea of how special, the sergeant is to the prince, is that because they're looking for the prince's wife, there's a marriage ban. No one's allowed to get married. But there's been an exception made for him. So I think it's really important to understand how strong the relationships are between these people, because, of course, the drama is going to go on to hurt you with their relationship. Especially when... So I don't know if it's really a spoiler to say it at this point, because it happens pretty much in the first episode or second episode, that Minji, she ends up entering the palace because while she's been on the run, she has figured out that she needs to get to the prince to just okay, now it will get into spoiler territory. To survive, to find out why her family had to die, and that it had to be something to do with the prince. She's coming to him for answers, but she's also coming to him like desperate for her life. And so when she finds herself in the palace, of course, she's going to end up coming face to face with Sergeant Han. And there's just so much tension in the way that these people relate to each other that is such a good way of... It's not ramping up conflict, but it's just like it's creating a level of angst that makes you very like, you're just very wrapped up in the story as you're watching it, because you know of the ways that they all relate to each other. And as each interaction proceeds, like each one kind of stabs you a little and you die a little. And that's like, for me, that's the foundation of this story, is that although the plot and everything, I find it really like, just the murder mystery part of it, I realize is the thing that I find the most immediately appealing. Like, there's a mystery, I'm here for it. But then as you sort of get below that, you realize that you really care about these characters. Even like, I'm 6 episodes in, but even like 2, 3, and 4 episodes in, you could feel like your own bond as a viewer to each character. Oh, the sweet, fraught tension of people. Yeah.
That's true. Initially, that mystery setup, like the moment they had like the scene sort of like shifts away from like the prince's story to Min Jae's story. And the moment that happens, you see what a conundrum she was in. Like she kind of like they are all sitting and eating, and then her family pretty much dies in front of her, and she's helpless. She can't stop it. They were all poisoned. And since she was the only one who wasn't poisoned, and there was like a witness came out and basically slandered her, and everybody was like, yeah, she's a woman, it's perfectly believable that she'll kill off her entire family because she wants to run away with her
Lover, yeah.
Yeah, so that pretty much like zero investigation went into but also the thing is, it was so appropriate for that time. Like the kind of stories you read in history, this matched up completely. I have no issues believing that this was how investigation was conducted.
They do further investigation there. You just have to keep watching.
So the scene shifts from the princess curse to following Johnsoni's character, which is Min Jae. And so Min Jae finds herself in a conundrum. Her entire family has been poisoned to death. She's been accused of murder. And initially, there is just so much brouhaha around her. There's just enough circumstantial evidence and stuff that it's like people start believing that narrative a bit too quickly. So her sort of her maid, which is played by that's Jangaram, played by Pyo Ye-jin. Oh my God, I'll come to that. So Pyo Ye-jin is basically like run away, and because like you don't know, like honestly, I don't blame them for reacting that way, because these women are alone at this point. Her entire family is being slaughtered. You don't know if she's going to be the next target or how she's going to be treated during an investigation. Women weren't exactly treated amazingly, especially if you didn't have, the protection of like an influential family, which her influential family is now dead. Chances are things would have gone very wrong, and Min Jae needed to be outside, like to prove her own innocence. What I really like is because they had very quickly established the kind of character she was early on in her life, and the fact that her father clearly didn't try to squash that side of her. When like she runs away and finds herself alone, and like at one point she's fighting off soldiers as she's running away, and because she's such a tiny thing, and like you know that scene in the forest when she's fighting the soldier, she's trying her best not to hurt anybody, like very clearly, while she's like begging with them to like allow her to like prove her innocence. And it's a scene that's very easy to make ridiculous. Like they could have made her so adept that she was like fighting off like 5 soldiers in one go. But instead, what they did was like it was a struggle for her. Like she loses her shoes at one point. She gets cornered at one point. Like she can't escape anymore. She's very clearly, competent, but like in no match for the situation. She was going to get caught. So what she ends up doing is what often happens in Sagi. So this is one of the things that we'll come back to in a bit, is that she basically jumps from a cliff.
Well, she was cornered and fell. So
sure, but how often do characters running away from...
Although it sounds tropey when you describe it, it didn't play out in a tropey way. I thought that was...
That's true. I mean, the entire thing was done really well. I loved it. But I especially love the fact that when she finds herself alone, completely alone, at the end of a tether, there's nobody to turn to for help. She just accepts it and starts rolling with the situation. She changes her clothes, puts on male garments, and decides she's going to go to, basically she's going to find a way to the prince. So basically, she puts a plan in motion. The thing is, like, she is somebody who is active in her own um rescue, so to speak. Like, she's
Mm,
actively doing these things. Chance isn't like putting her in the path of the prince.
right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, for instance, just think of Moonlight,
I actually
Cloud.
wanted to
What
talk
was the
about
name of that?
that. Moonlight Drawn by Clouds. Yeah.
You have usually with Fusion Saga situations where the heroine doesn't actively try to like get to the hero. It's usually a situation of like them accidentally meeting,
Mm,
or her being trapped in a situation that puts her in the path of the hero. Here she planned it, figured out how to get sort of like, herself in disguise. I'm not going to spoil how it happens, but the thing is that she ends up meeting the prince, who she's trying to meet because of a hint she had, like a conversation with her father. And she figures like whatever happened to her family must be connected to the prince.
mm.
I love this whole sequence so much. And even before like she actually ends up meeting the prince, there is a moment where Jangaram and so Minjay ends up at her like Jangaram's house where she lives with her, like where her brother lives, and the two of them are perfectly happy to like protect her and run away with her because they're clearly very loyal to her. But she doesn't want them to risk their life. So at one point, when Jangaram is like, "No, I will come with you wherever you go because I'm already a runaway slave, so they're going to hunt me down anyway. So what is the worst thing that can happen to me?" But Minjae is like, "No," and she sort of like puts a knife at her friend's throat, and you can see both of them, like neither of them really. It's not like she's actually going to hurt her, but it's just like that moment where they're like they're good friends and they want to, yeah. I just loved that whole sequence. Like, just, yeah.
So here's the thing with this show, I came to it because of Park Hyung-sik, but I'm staying because of Johnson. Her character is so interesting, and the just she as an actor is bringing everything. I actually am finding myself a little bit underwhelmed by Park Hyung-sik. Like I expected him to be a little more happiness Park Hyung-sik, and he seems to have dialed back from the level that he reached on that. Like I don't know if it's the role that isn't as good or if he isn't bringing as much, but there are moments where I watch him and he's just got a bit of a bland expression and you're like, you could be acting a bit more here. Like I want to see more in your face and you're not bringing what I'm used to seeing from you. And so I guess we'll see how that goes. Like, has he finally begun coasting on his looks? Because I don't want him to do that. Don't do that. I've built you up all of these years on this podcast as a person who is much better than his looks. So don't let me down now. The other thing I want to talk about is yes, Moonlight Drawn by Clouds. How, like, on the surface, they may seem like they're quite similar dramas. The woman is disguised as a eunuch and she goes in and becomes close to the crown prince and they fall in love, blah, blah, blah. It seems very typical. But the thing with Moonlight Drawn by Clouds is I loved parts of that drama, but then there were parts of it that were really frustrating, like that draggy sort of third quarter, and where they just literally lost the plot. And what I'm really enjoying in this show right now is that it is prioritizing the plot. And do you remember when we were talking about the King's Affection last year, the year before? I can't remember which year it was.
Mm-hmm.
And how annoying I found it that they just would throw in these like lingering love shots like too early. And so I feel a little wary like with this drama because they've done a couple of those. They haven't overdone it, but I find myself not interested in a romance right now. I'm interested
Yeah,
in
I
their
agree.
actual relationship. I'm interested in the relationships between all of the main characters. And, the secondary characters are really interesting, like the satellite characters, like Garam's character, like the other, I guess you'd say he's the third male character, played by Itaeson, the character of Kim Myung-jin, who is like the youngest
Yeah.
son of one of the ministers, and
Which I just find him so
he's
hilarious.
so good,
That's,
like for so many reasons, like not just because he's funny or because he's genuinely gifted in the thing that he does, and because he's a bit absurd. Absurd characters are always the best. So that's all there. And the other thing that this show shares with like Moonlight Drawn by Clouds, also known as I think Lovers in the Moonlight or something, Love in the Moonlight,
yeah.
is that sort of tone, the courtly royal intrigue thing. And I'll just finish the thought. And the and the whole crown prince aura, aloof crown prince thing.
But if you do a direct comparison between how the two actors decided to play these princes, um, you're kind of right that Park Hyung-sik's crown prince, even though technically he's the one who should have like more intensity given the kind of life he's leading, like he's replaceable, like he's very replaceable. Where Park Bo-gum's prince felt beleaguered and he was like nobody had any expectations from him and stuff like that. But it's not. Park Hyung-sik's prince can literally be like dragged down. His father just casually says, "Well, we have another son." So yeah, if he's dragged down, then he's dragged down.
But I mean, that's also part of the story, though. That's the built-in tenuousness of his position. Is that even a word? I don't know.
I agree, but which would make you think that Park Hyung-sik's character would just like vibrate with intensity, because of his position. But
then there's also the aspect where he is like unwillingly in this position. Like he wasn't born for it. He wasn't brought up to it. He just is there because, again, like the entire thing is because of the accident of their births, right? Like he isn't invested in being a crown prince or in being the king, I guess. But it's like now that it is his position, he sees it as his responsibility.
I agree, but you know what deposed crown princes can expect after they get deposed,
To
right? Not a very
die.
long life. So yeah, you would think he's too chill.
Yeah.
Like he's really chill. As so I honestly think that the issue might just be the direction given to him.
Maybe, yeah.
Because like he's had like a pretty chill vibe since he's come back from the army. The way he did
Right.
Happiness was just
Perfect.
it was
Yeah.
sheer perfection. But if you watch something like Soundtrack, which he did last year, it's like this 4 episode Friends to Lovers romance with Han So-hee, and it's super cute, but he's also like the chillest. Like if you take this guy
Like
and put
he's
him
not
next
trying.
to Strong Woman, The Bong Soon's, Park Hyung-sik, these are like two different, like these are polar opposites in the chill spectrum.
Oh, interesting.
That guy had no chill. This guy has
All
like
the chill.
nothing but chill. All the chill. And like while I feel like that's great for the actors like mental health, like personally I feel like he's
Bring
at
a
a much
little
better
more
space.
angst is what we want for him in the
Yeah.
story. Well, I mean, we don't need to even go to like Park Bo-gum to talk about the kind of tension that we want to see in his character, because you can just compare Park Hyung-sik to Park Hyung-sik. Because even I know everybody hates Hwarang except me, but
No, I don't hate. He was amazing in Hwarang. He was like the reason I kept watching.
that's the character I wanted. That's the intensity I want to
that's
see in
true.
him. That guy. Because, okay, he's a king in that, but he's also in the same kind of position. He's like the hidden king. He's like nobody knows what his position is except
And he has no
certain people.
supporters.
Exactly.
Just like
It's like that
here.
isolation
Yeah.
and being cut off is very integral to how these characters function, because that also becomes the conflict as the show goes on. Like there's this one really great, fantastic, bone-chilling scene, which is in, I think, episode 5. And you might not think that it's such a huge scene until you start thinking about the implications. So, is it going to be a spoiler if I tell you? Okay, let's say spoiler warnings if you don't want to hear what happens in this episode. Do you want me to tell you though?
Yeah.
Okay. So, there's a point where the prince and Jae go out, and she's in her eunuch role at that point, and they get into a fight doing something else, and she gets injured, and this is where he comes over all crown prince, and he's like, I believe in her. She is like, basically she's my person and no one's allowed to touch her. And part of that, as the viewer, is because she's a woman and he can't let anybody else touch her and find out that she's a woman. So partly it's that, but also partly it's him openly declaring a position that is like a position of faith, like of a lowly eunuch, in the face of his best friend, who's already being tormented by his father pointing out to him, look, the prince doesn't trust you. And he didn't want to believe that, and he didn't have evidence of that. But things keep happening that make him think that. And like the prince is in a position where he cannot take friends. And he says that explicitly. But when two boys have grown up as friends, you're not going to take that at face value, are you? You're still going to believe that that friendship is there, regardless of the positions that the two of you take. So there's that moment, and you're like, you look at Han Sung-un's face, and you're like, you broke his heart. Like, this is a man this is the moment you broke his heart, and this is the moment that is going to come back to you in the future as the point where maybe this man will become your enemy. Because that's the curse. The curse says your friends will become your enemies. And so that's a fear that the prince has as he's sort of going through life, looking at his best friend, wondering, when will you betray me? And of course, how can you have a friendship where one of you is always wondering, when will you betray me? And now you complicate that with the fact that the prince is developing feelings for Jae, and that Song, the sergeant best friend, he doesn't know who she is. He doesn't know even who the real Jae, like whether she actually murdered her family, whether she really did have a lover. And like, there's just, it's all building up to something, and I want it to be magnificent and explosive and awful, but also like, don't kill me. So,
yeah.
I'm just, you don't understand how stoked I am for the story to go right. And I'm so afraid it will go wrong. Actually, I'm not.
I don't think
I'm very faithful.
Wrong. Yeah. For two reasons. First is that it is an adaptation. And people have been like looking forward to this for like a really long time. There is a Chinese drama version of this that got like stalled for a while, and now they're trying to figure out how to like replace the male lead.
Wasn't this a novel originally?
It was a novel which got adapted into like the Chinese drama, which didn't get released because its main actor got into a scandal. And I don't have all the details of what scandal he got into. I remember hearing about it last year somewhat. So I won't go into the details because I honestly have not read up on it enough, and I don't want to like speculate. But so the production got delayed. But recently, after this one started airing, the Korean version started airing, and not just started airing, but like with really high ratings. Yeah, the Chinese production house was like, yeah, maybe we should like bring this back. It slept long enough.
Right.
So yeah, they're trying to figure out how to release the drama.
Interesting.
Anyway, so my point is like there is source material that's already well liked.
Okay.
And also I have trust in this writer. I don't know, not so much with this director. I've forgotten the director's name already. So Jung Hyun-jung is the writer, and the way I know her best.
Romance is a bonus book.
Romance is a bonus book, but the way I got to know her is through the I Need Romance series.
Right. Okay.
And her writing is solid. Like, it might seem shaky at first. Like, she takes time to like build up. So I actually trust it. That's one of the reasons I'm still sticking.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
No, finish your sentence and then I'll add.
Okay, so that's one of the reasons I'm sticking. For instance, I didn't actually enjoy Love Struck in the City initially.
I was just about to mention
either.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, and I gave that up at that point. But then much later, because again, social media and tiny clips being just, thrust at my face suddenly and out of context made me go back and watch the rest of it. And honestly, it's really good in the second half. So that's the weird thing about this writer's stuff. I've often found that her second half is like better than the first half. So
that's good to
I have some hope that that's the way we are going. Like, she's building up to moments instead of like expending all the best moments in the first 4 episodes, like Kings of Action did, and then like starving us for like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
So that's let's not do that.
or of being swayed by like the
Public
live shoot
response.
problem.
Yeah.
But then this show is fully pre-produced, so we shouldn't
Yeah.
have the live shoot problem where they respond to, oh, people want to see more couple moments, so let's give you like a whole stretch of dumb romance while the plot like just lies, forgotten and
Yeah,
dusty.
forgotten for a
Yeah.
bit.
Oh, that made me so angry.
I will
That drama
say,
could have been
though,
so good.
Which one? I'm
Moonlight
sorry.
Drawn by
Which drama
Clouds.
could it be? Oh. The thing is that I have so much nostalgia wrapped up in it that even though it just like completely sat on its like heels at one point, it just refused to do anything. I still have really great memories.
True, so do
connected
I.
to that drama.
Because it made a save in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, it made a save in the end. Exactly. What I end up doing is I watched the first 10 episodes, then I pretty much skipped to the last 2 episodes.
Right. Basically, yeah, that is what you have to do. That third quarter, just you can not watch it and it's fine. Because it's just a completely different show. It didn't need to be.
So
20
I
episodes or
complained
whatever.
about Park Hyung-sik's character, but I will also give him all the points for like looking the part. Okay, I know he can have chemistry with a wall. I know he can, but like I like it when actors can have chemistry with their
Everyone.
every character. Like the Park Hyung-sik has that way of like building, like showing relationships. So I was watching some behind the scenes of their actual like shooting, and with Park Hyung-sik being like very intense about like, so there is this particular scene in the tent after the hunt, and it's the way he's approaching her. So he's discussing that with the director, he's discussing that with her, and like he's like changing the way the director has given him a set of actions to do as he delivers a dialogue, and he's modifying that to sort of like have more physical proximity to
Jay.
John Sohee's Jay's character. I like this aspect of it because you can also see that on screen. Like these are the things that makes him a good actor. I'm still sticking to the fact that we're not seeing the intensity we need to see, but I like the way he has chemistry with everyone on screen, basically.
I do want him to try a little harder, though. I want his micro acting to be at his level because I think he isn't bringing that.
I know.
And he usually does. It's not that it's bad, it's just that I know he's better than this. And so
he is better than
when I
this.
don't see it, it's a little like, oh, that's not what I thought I was going to see from you. One more thing I want to add before we sort of close out is one of the big things that separates this from Moonlight, and just from Sageuk in general, I think, is that this drama hinges around the murder/curse mysteries. Like it's hinged around a mystery, not around court politics. And I feel like that's a very refreshing remix on the genre because, everyone, all of the people who don't like Sageuk will always say that, oh, I just can't stand court politics. And like we're the weirdos who are like, we love court politics. But that can be tiring. It can be tiring because it takes time to sort out the politics.
Predictable.
Right.
Because you're like, oh, there are always two factions.
Right.
One of them is trying to kill the king.
Right. And there is a level of boredom because it's like, well, we know what's happening and what's coming. It's about sorting out, well, who's on which side and, which intrigue is today the day for. Whereas when they make that secondary and they make this whole murder plot and curse plot the driving the driving mystery the driving force of the show, it changes it. Like it's quite subtle, but it changes the way that the show flows. It changes even, like, for example, like the way the what are they called? The way the cliffhangers are at the end of each episode. The thing that makes you want to watch the thing that makes you want to watch the next episode right away. The reason that you sort of think about it for a whole week until the next episode, it's because of those things. And like, it's just really interesting. I'm very excited for it to Carry
I
on.
like that the mystery was what it's built up on. Like the moment the mystery hit, like the moment the murder accusation happened, and then you had Min Jae running away,
Mm.
it was very clearly established that
Mm.
this story is a mystery foremost, and that is excellent because most stories, as you know, is like most fusion sagas like this is a love story first, and then there are
Yeah.
random mysteries sort of like put it. Usually it's to do with like their backstories and
Right.
some childhood betrayal that has happened.
Well, and the other
It's
thing,
yeah.
sorry, did I cut you
No,
off?
no, 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 no. I'm just
And the other thing this show does is that it gives you something every episode. Like it furthers that sort of long plot. It gives you something every episode that brings you a little closer to understanding what's happening, with either of those plots and the ways that they connect, because obviously they do. So, like for a few episodes, they were investigating some serial murders, and at the end of it, you realize, oh, this is a piece of the puzzle. And that will take us to the beginning of the next step of that arc in the next week's episode. I'm very excited, but we should probably stop talking about it
yeah.
now.
We should. So, but before we end, I just want to re-emphasize. I love John Sohee in this drama,
Johnsoni.
but I love Johnsoni. Sorry, I love Johnsoni in this drama, but what is most impressive is how her character is positioned. She's not positioned as the love interest of the prince. She's positioned almost as like
An independent
the
agent.
prime. No,
Yeah.
she is positioned almost as like one of the two primary protagonists. Like she has an independent story arc than the prince with his curse,
Yeah.
and at some point they might blend. But my point is, these two have two
She's the
like
star of her own
equal
story.
driving.
Right.
Exactly, she's the hero of her own story. She has her own mystery to solve,
I actually
and like
think
the way you have these two protagonists sort of like start to work together is like what is it called when two kings two kingdoms decide to work together, alliance.
oh,
The way these two start working together is by compromising and like forming an alliance. And like yeah, she's in the weaker position and he's helping her hide, but it's still like a position where the two of them don't quite trust each other, but they don't really have anybody else who knows exactly what these two know. And so they kind of realize they have to depend on each other. It's a dynamic that I really like, versus what usually happens with this kind of like eunuch prince sort of situation, where the girl is entirely dependent on the mercy of the prince, and her story is driven forward by what's happening to the prince. If the prince is attacked, like she reacts to protect him. It's like, like the princess story is what drives the actual drama, and she kind of like hops along till towards the end her own arc has like a conclusion. Whereas what I like about this one at this point, the story at this point, is that, like I said, independent arcs, and like they both feel like heroes of their own story. So yeah, I'm optimistic about it.
I will offer as my final thought that I think he's the secondary character. She's the hero.
In the first episode, like I just watched it and I made a reel basically going like, this is the high point of the story, everything is going downhill, because like that introduction to Johnson's character was just so good. And I was like, there is no way a fusion Sagok is going to be able to keep this up. But I no longer feel that way.
Yeah, as you pointed out, this writer has a very good track record of making her female characters the primary characters. Like,
I agree.
all of the I Need Romance series.
If you've not watched the I Need Romances, please watch them. Just go watch them.
And she
Just watch
gives her women space to be atypical, to be a little bit messy if needed, to be what they need to be, and to respond to their situations as full people, not as someone constrained by what the story needs them to do or what the trope requires from them, right? And
Agreed.
I didn't even look. I mean, I must have looked it up at some point and then I forgot about it. But now that you've brought it back to my mind, I'm just thinking, I'm more excited now. Okay, let's leave it there. This is just
Okay,
you have
good.
to
That was a good
understand.
wild yak.
You just have to understand that this show is all of my favorite things. Yeah.
It's got a mystery. It's got a crown prince. It's got Hyung-sik.
More than one fierce woman. It's
Oh,
gosh.
and it's got female friendship. Like it's like not just
Yeah.
in a patronizing way.
Yes.
In a like a really solid, loyal
Heartfelt.
way. It's
Yeah.
just so heartfelt.
And it's got that sort of a wide streak of absurdity, which is great. I just love it. Like, what more can you ask for in a drama? Okay, bye then.
Intensity. Just Park Hyung-sik having a little more intensity.
That's true. That's true. But we can't have everything. So
we will hopefully have everything by the end of the drama, so we got to keep our hopes up. But that is it for this wild yak. We'll see where things go. And you can find us on Twitter at Dramas Overflow. You can find Saya at Not Now Saya, and you can find me, Parama, at The Drama Note.
it's like we're doing it for the first time every time.
Always, every time.
Okay. And you can find us on Instagram at dramasoverflowers_. And you can email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook. Just search Dramas Over Flowers. And our website is dramasoverflowers.net.
Also, link to our newsletter is below. Oh, and an episode or two ago, we released our sort of like spoiled yak on Interest of Love. I'm giving that an extra shout out because that drama is just like so underappreciated. And if you're not convinced if it's for you, just listen to like the first 10 minutes or so of us like going through our
Of
feelings.
you guys replacing me with Frabby.
That
I'm
too.
actually down for that. That's cool. Frabby's great. If I have to be replaced,
Probably is great, yeah.
let it be
But
her.
no, you don't get an out. I'm sorry, you're shackled for
damn.
life.
You see me trying to leave. And also,
Okay.
just before we go straight into the very last line, because I don't know if everyone knows, but if you haven't checked out our Patreon for a while, do go and take a look and see if you're interested in any of the stuff that we're doing there, because we are being good. And we've been posting special. I call them voice note diaries. I don't know if that's what they're really called.
We're all calling them voice note diaries. And like they started off like we were so strict. We were like, oh, it's gonna be 10 minutes or
2
less.
minutes,
It was
3 minutes.
Yeah, sure. And now it's like 15 minutes, 17 minutes. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be
20?
half an hour soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
good practice. Maybe one of these days we'll come with like solo, was it a lone yak? An actual podcast episode where we don't talk to anybody but ourselves.
Yeah, we are building up to that.
Yeah.
We've just like somehow managed to avoid doing them as yet, but we're probably gonna end up doing them soon.
But what's nice about those is that, I mean, on the podcast, we try to stay on topic. And for some of us, it's harder than it is for others. So in those excursions with our patrons, we get to talk about all sorts of other things, bringing it back to drama one way or another. But, basically go and listen to my 17-minute defense of Crown Princes. Was it even 17 minutes? I don't know. Anyway, Dramas Over Flowers is
part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.
Man, I hope we don't get fired because of this. I'm so all over the place. Oh my god. It's because I didn't have breakfast. Okay, bye everyone.